looks like undelivered Amazon bundles here.
This is what a Lakeville police officer found while on patrol Sunday in the middle of the night. He saw something odd on the side of the road, and when he went to check it out, he found 3 large totes of Amazon packages scattered in the woods.
So I'm like, what is that? Is that trash? I was like, that's not trash, that's Amazon.
About 80 packages in all had been discarded.
It's frustrating, but there's a lot more things in life to be more frustrated about.
Blake Brangan says he got a message on his phone his package had been lost.
I know, it's really crazy just to toss them out in the woods like that, but thankfully for that officer that found them.
Police say an Amazon driver has now come forward, telling police she left the packages around 7 p.m. Saturday night because she was too stressed. The driver said she'd be notifying her manager.
You want to bring these back to Amazon in Middleborough?
In a statement, Amazon tells us all customer orders were reprocessed and redelivered or are currently in the process of being redelivered. Customers can check their accounts to see updates around expected delivery times. Blake's package has now made it to his home in Assonet.
It's stressful times during the holidays, but I really feel bad for whoever it was, just dump out all the packages like that.
Hello and welcome. This article will pertain to the video clips in this upload. I will leave all sources in the description below. This article is titled, Amazon Manipulates Worker Injury Data. Senate Panel's Probe Alleges. And it was uploaded December 16, 2024. It reads, a new report out from the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, HELP, led by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, accuses Amazon of manipulating data on worker injuries and ignoring safety concerns. The big picture, the online retail giant has faced intense scrutiny in recent years over allegations of unsafe or grueling work conditions. Amazon warehouses recorded over 30% more injuries than the warehousing industry average in 2023, per an analysis of company data highlighted in the report. Amazon forces workers to operate in a system that demands impossible rates and treats them as disposable when they are injured. It was a quote, end quote, Sanders said in a statement. His panel's 18-month probe drew from over 130 interviews with workers and company documents. In a statement, Amazon said it cooperated with the investigation and pushed back on what it called the, quote, biased nature, end quote, of the report and its findings. Driving the news, the report alleged that Amazon cherry-picks data to obscure disproportionately dangerous facilities compared to other industry warehouses. Some workers interviewed said they routinely bypassed safety measurements to meet, quote, productivity requirements, end quote. Not good, guys. Not good. I'm pulling away from the article. When I used to work in transportation and I used to be a safety trainer, and the Department of Transportation has regular safety trainings pertaining to people in workspaces and in transportation, rushing through the task, rushing through their job, and sacrificing safety for productivity. And that's when you know, guys, when people start sacrificing safety for productivity, that's when accidents happen. And often those accidents can be fatal in nature. So if a company is applying so much pressure to their workforce that their workforce is feeling pressured to put productivity before safety, that company is creating a storm, a perfect storm for injuries, accidents, and deaths. It's just inevitable. It's bound to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So again, when a company is putting productivity before safety, that company needs to reassess their priorities. Continuing. The findings also cited workers who said they suffered chronic pain and temporary or permanent disabilities because of injuries sustained in Amazon warehouses. The report stated that in each of the past 7 years, Amazon workers are about twice as likely to be injured as workers in non-Amazon warehouses. You see that, guys? Pulling away from the article. I'm going to read that again. The report stated that in each of the past 7 years, Amazon workers are about twice as likely to be injured as workers in non-Amazon warehouses. As in, Amazon warehouses are the most dangerous warehouses for workers. Holy shit. Continuing. Zoom in. The report alleges that Amazon's reports of declining recordable injury rates are misleading, saying the company boasts numbers compared to an, quote, outlier year, end quote, and compares its rate to only a, quote, small subcategory of the industry, end quote. And that just sounds excessive to me. It's like it's excessive greed, right? If I'm going to read that again too. The report alleges that Amazon's report of declining recordable injury rates are misleading, saying the company boasts numbers compared to an, quote, outlier year, end quote, and compares its rate to only a, quote, small subcategory of the industry, end quote. So it's like Amazon is twisting the narrative pertaining to their workforce injuries, and it's like they're saying it's an outlier, it's unusual. That's unusual for our workers to be injured. That's not commonplace for our workers to be injured. And oh, those injuries, they're only referring to a small subcategory of the industry. Okay, that's a corporation that refuses to take personal responsibility for the workplace it enforces on its workers, on its labor force. Okay, Amazon is sounding rather dangerous to me right now, and I feel bad for anybody who is forced to work for Amazon because they have no other choice. There are no other jobs for them. Continuing, the other side, quote, there's zero truth to the claim that we systematically underreport injuries, end quote, Amazon spokesperson Kelly Nantle said in a statement. Quote, Senator Sanders and his staff chose to rely on the debunked Soteria analysis because it fits the false narrative he wanted to build, end quote, the company's release said. Nantle also pointed to a decision from a Washington state judge earlier this year. I guess it's a typo. It reads state judge earlier his year. I think it's this year, to throw out citations from risk of certain injuries. Quote, next paragraph. What they're saying, quote, this report should set off even more alarms about the ongoing safety crisis for workers at Amazon, end quote, said Michael Zucker, the executive director of the Strategic Organizing Center, a coalition of labor unions that has analyzed Amazon's workplace injury data for years. Zucker added, quote, now is the time for workers, consumers, and regulators to hold the company accountable and force it to get serious about preventing injuries, end quote. Can't disagree with the guy. Can't disagree with him. Continuing, our thought bubble from Axios Emily Peck, it's hard to imagine Amazon facing harsh consequences for the report's findings after the Trump administration comes in next year. Though the president-elect has been supportive of labor in some instances during his campaign and as he prepares to retake the White House, it's broadly expected that the Republican-controlled federal government will be more lax about labor regulations. And that's the end of the article. So yeah, I will play the next clip.
Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Here you have drivers coming out and the striking workers giving them hell for basically breaking the line, breaking the strike. What they call scabs that are still working and crossing the picket line.
So if you don't know, this is a Teamsters union, and Teamsters is one of the world's most powerful, most long-standing work unions. They even have unions in Hollywood. They used to have a lot more unions in Hollywood. You know, when you reach the end of a movie and the credits roll, a lot of times in the 90s and the 80s, you could see the Teamsters logo at the end of the credits because a lot of Hollywood movie sets were built and put together by union members, Teamsters in particular. So Teamsters is an international union, and I used to be part of Teamsters when I worked in transportation, and that was briefly when I was a union member for Teamsters. And then when I was promoted to administration, I worked with the union and with administration. I was like a mediator as a safety trainer, and I assisted in writing union contracts for the Teamsters union. For the particular transportation contract I was responsible for. So I'm familiar with Teamsters. I have a lot of respect for them. I just wish they were more powerful. I think they've lost a lot of power over the decades. They've become a bit more political. And we really need strong workers' unions in this world and in this country. So when union members are striking, they stop working, and sometimes they'll get food donations from the union. Like they'll get a box of food from the union, maybe a couple boxes. The union will also cut them a check, but often that check is nowhere near what the union members would normally be making for their regular work hours. So when union members go on strike, they are not getting paid, and they're lucky if they have food storages, if they have a savings. A lot of times, union members don't have a savings. So when they are going on strike, it means they're not earning a paycheck, or they're not earning much. They're certainly earning a lot less than they would be if they were working. And so the point is, guys, that they are suffering, and they're suffering to prove a point to the corporation, to the administration of the company, and to say, we are your workforce. You can't get anything done without us. Please treat us better. But sometimes during a strike, there are workers who are not union members, or they are union members and they still choose to work during a strike, more often than not, because they need the paycheck. They need the money. They know that going on strike means not earning a paycheck. It's a difficult position to be in. So although workers who work during a strike are referred to as scabs, historically, they are referred to as scabs, and the point of that term is to say, you are a hindrance to our movement. You are a hindrance to our protest against this corporation. We are demanding this corporation to take better care of us workers and and we have stopped working to demonstrate that, to make them take better care of us. And how dare you continue to work while we are trying to make a statement? You are a scab, you know? And I get both sides. I get the workers that have to keep working because they can't afford to go on strike. They can't afford to stop earning a paycheck. And I also understand and more so side with the workers who go on the strike, who sacrifice their paycheck. They sacrifice food. They sacrifice their earnings to make a statement to the corporation. I get both sides. To me, both sides are necessary. People have to work. They have to eat. They have to pay their bills, especially in the winter. You know, people need shelter in the winter. But I also get that if you don't ever strike as a union, if you don't strike as a workforce, then the corporation will continue to take advantage of you.
They have a whole lot of police out here. A whole lot of police out here to protect those drivers.
And he said, Jordan Cheriton said that they have a lot of police officers to protect the workers who are working during a strike. And that's also necessary. Again, I have personal experience. I witnessed it. Sometimes these strikes can get violent. So I'm saying security is necessary because we've got very passionate people on both sides. The people who want to keep working because they can't afford to stop working, the scabs, and the union members, the union members who stopped working because they can't afford to keep going the way they are. You know, both sides are passionate. And both sides want to be taken care of. Both sides want to earn a paycheck ultimately. But when you're a scab still working during a strike, and when you are a union member going on a strike, there will be arguments, you know, and that's why security is necessary.
So how long you been at Amazon? And tell me about this momentum and energy out here.
Yeah, it's pretty great, man. It's a lot of support. I've been here for a year now, since October. And, you know, I was really liking the job, but at the same time, you know, the pay is what's really killing me right now. Like, if it could be a little higher, that would be great. Because, you know, when you hear about, like, UPS and they're doing their contract and they're doing their thing, you know, people working there for a while making six figures, that's great. And we just want a piece of that cake, too, you know.
And for you know, I was being told, you know, $22 an hour, but that's not going to get you that far in New York City.
No.
And there's people who have to work other jobs, and he was saying about your story. Share your personal story.
On the side, I do Uber, sometimes after work, but on my days off, you know. I just got my moped, so, you know, I'm using that now. But before I did it on my bicycle, man, I was pedaling all over the city, you know.
How do you do that after a 10-hour shift? You got the energy after driving 10 hours and delivering over 200 packages?
You just look, like, you got a lot of motivation. You look at your pockets and you're just like, yo, nothing in there, so I got to do something, man. That's just how it is, you know. But, yeah, like, it's fun for me at the
That was a really good inflatable. If you didn't see it, it was a pig. I've seen that image before in depictions of greedy CEOs, greedy corporations. People over the centuries have drawn cartoons and comics about the greed of corporations, of capitalism. So that pig signifies the greed, the excessive greed at the top of a majority of our corporations in the US. And of course, Amazon is one of the largest corporations in the world. They even have military contracts. We're talking a powerful conglomerate that Amazon is. And I think that inflatable is justified. I would say there is gluttonous, excessive greed at the top of Amazon.
Same time, but it's a lot of work. I just gotta, do what I gotta do, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for putting food on the table for myself.
And for you, can you talk about the labor of being
right? And if you remember in a previous video, I mentioned that there are people in 2024 entering 2025, millions of people in the US who don't have a day off. They have to work 5 days a week, and then they have to work on their days off. They don't get a day off because the $22 an hour they're earning from Amazon or Whole Foods Market is not cutting it. If you live in any major city in the US, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, $22 an hour is not cutting it. It's not. It's impossible to keep up with the cost of living. If you're living in New York City, again, Boston, Chicago, any major city in the US, they have all been gentrified. Gentrification. It's when the cost of living goes up and it doesn't have to. It's like your rent. Your rent goes up and it doesn't have to. There used to be rent control in this country. Boston, Massachusetts used to have rent control just a couple of generations ago. But now Boston Mayor Wu, to me, is in cahoots with the private landlords of Boston, the corporations in Boston that bought up land, bought up property. And now the cost of living in Boston is impossible for anyone lower than middle class. So again, there used to be rent control in this country, in the US, and that is no more unless you apply for government assistance. And so often it's a long waiting list, like Section 8. Some people have to wait a couple years to be accepted to get a place through Section 8. It's bad in this country, guys. So $22 an hour in a major city is not cutting it. People are forced to have a second job. They are forced to work 7 days a week. It is inhumane what these corporations and these politicians and these local governments are doing to the U.S. American workforce.
a driver? Because people were talking about, you're bending and...
Yeah, the bending especially, with the job, the way it's set up is like you got to reach into these bags, a lot of bending down, a lot of lifting, and it can be excruciating after 6-7 hours, but, the worst part for me was actually peak season of last year. The load was crazy, man. I was out there till late.
What was the load? How many packages would you have?
300, maybe more, And you're going building to building, and you got to go up and down the stairs, up the elevator, down the stairs. It's crazy.
So I don't take it with delivering 300 packages, you get time to eat, go to the bathroom.
No, a lot of, and especially then, but even now, sometimes, I gotta be eating while I'm driving, or eating, eating while I'm delivering. I got a bottle of water in my pocket, and I'm just sipping at it every now and then. But yeah, you really don't get much time to just sit down or relax for even 20 minutes, Yeah, so it is what it is, though.
To people who say, well, if it's so bad, why don't you go get another job? Are there a lot of better options out there in New York?
I've actually been looking, but I didn't have too much luck. Especially nowadays, it's really hard to get a job. Everybody's secure, and I don't know. It's not really a hiring boom right now.
And I can attest to that. I know lots of people personally who've tried to get jobs in Boston, in particular, for example, and it's very difficult. The applications are flooded. You know, all of these hiring applications, these websites that you can apply to get a job, they are flooded with applicants. And a lot of those applicants have college education. So if you're poor and you couldn't afford a college education, you're not going to get looked at. Your application is going to be at the bottom of some, like underneath the application of someone with a college degree. You know, you're not going to be first choice. You're not going to be the one they call first if you don't have a college education. So I'm saying the poor here, the poor people in the US and the working class are extremely disadvantaged compared to those of middle class and higher economic statuses. People with, again, college tuition, people who could afford college tuition, people whose parents paid for their college. They are at a much better circumstance, much more prepared. They are much more prepared in life because of their economic status. And but a majority of people in the US are working class or poor, okay? The wealthy, those in the middle class and up, they do not make up the majority. These workforces are made up of the poor. I've said this in previous videos. These corporations are pyramidal systems, and they all rely on the poor and the working class to do a majority of the work. If you're in administration and you're offended by what I'm saying, go ahead and be offended. I was in the administration too. Administration does not do anywhere near as much physical hard work as those beneath administration. The entry-level jobs, the jobs that this guy has, the driving jobs, the warehouse jobs, the store jobs, the cashier jobs, the stocking jobs. Administration is not difficult compared to using your entire body, sitting at a desk with a job that is mostly sedentary, does not force out of your body what these entry-level jobs force. The workforce in Amazon in particular is suffering. The bottom of the Amazon pyramid is suffering.
And even if I did find another job, I don't want to get something that's paying me less, you know? So.
Can you kind of talk about your coworkers? Because I'm hearing, some of them are sleeping in their cars because they can't afford rent.
Crazy part, I'm just now hearing about that, which is unfortunate because, I'm actually lucky myself to have the living situation that I have right now currently. But, living in your car, it's got to be tough, and it's not a cozy lifestyle. But, I know it's going to be a momentary crisis for them, but they'll get through it. I wish the best for them. I didn't.
What does it say to you, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people on the earth? This company is worth trillions of dollars. Yet, I'm hearing, some of the vans have fallen apart. They're not up to snuff. It seems like they're using AI and trying to use robots rather than humans.
That's the weird part, having our routes generated by a computer, and you'd think that there'd be like a good amount of human supervision on that thing. You can't just leave that up to that. And the thing about the trucks being not up to code and things like that, that's crazy. One time I was even driving one of the EDVs with a cracked windshield because I didn't take a picture and a photo and I didn't send it to them because I just assumed somebody knew about it because they should keep on top of their cars. I almost got blamed for that windshield being cracked, and sometimes those things go unreported, and that's shame on me, one of those drivers, whoever did that. But at the same time, if you have so many people, or you could have so many people watching over this, looking after each van and taking care of them. As far as I know, they only got one guy doing it, maybe two. I don't really know, but I've only seen the one dude. And even, what I'm saying, I'm not expecting him to look after however many vans they are, but you got to have a team of people looking after these stuff. We use them every day, And
what does it say to you at these strikes? I mean, yesterday, today, there's like dozens of cops out here. What exactly are they protecting? There's just people holding signs.
I think it's just maybe a show of force. Maybe we're showing them that, we're not standing for any more of the bullshit. Sorry, excuse my French. And you know, I guess this is how they're gonna retaliate. But what they should be doing is, you know, opening those ears and listening to us, and you know, seeing if we can come to a agreement of some sort instead of showing us that they really don't care, because that's all we're seeing. They really don't care.
What do you?
And if you remember that video from More Perfect Union that I shared, the video pertaining to the first Whole Foods Market union, or the first store in Whole Foods to be unionized in Philadelphia, the workers there have very similar complaints to this guy. They want to be heard. They're not being treated well. So again, this is Jeff Bezos. These are the top heads of the Amazon powerhouse. You know, they are not listening to their workers. Whether you work at Whole Foods Market or you work at Amazon, you are suffering because there is excessive greed at the top of the Amazon empire, and they are not listening to their workers. They don't care how much their workers are suffering, and yet there is excessive wealth at the top of Amazon, more than enough to give all of their workers, whether it be Amazon or Whole Foods, to give all of their workers just a bump up in pay so that they can keep up with the rising cost of living in this country, in the US. But again, it's not just up to the corporations, it's also up to the government, you know, but unfortunately they are all in cahoots. We are talking about the government benefiting from corporate greed and corporate greed paying into government. It's an endless cycle now. Whatever major corporation you can think of, they likely are in cahoots with your local government or with the federal government. And they are all okaying it. You know, just look at the federal minimum wage in the US. That should tell you the unchanging minimum federal wage in the US. That should tell you how much the US government gives a damn about the workforce in this country. These are human beings, you know? We were all sold the American dream, and it was a lie. Thank you for watching.